Tommy Baker is a writer, speaker, coach, and host of the Resist Average Academy, a top-rated iTunes podcast designed to give you the knowledge, inspiration, and action steps to live a life by design. Resist Average podcast brings together the world's best to engage in deep conversations to give you the insights, tools, and shifts to create the life of your dreams. Tommy's podcast has featured powerful conversations with Dean Graziosi, Lewis Howes, Jesse Itzler, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Tom Bilyeu, and more. His books are the Unrest Ellucian book, which discusses how to ditch resolutions forever, live life by design, and archive your dreams, The 1% Rule, where you discover why thousands have embraced the power of the 1% rule to create the life of their dreams, and The Leap of Your Life, coming soon, where you can now pre-order on Amazon and through his website, that's discussing how to redefine risk, quit waiting for someday, and live boldly. You can find all of his books in all formats on Amazon and most other well-known book providers such as Barnes & Noble. Tommy and I share a fascinating conversation going into his background, his podcast and books, and some amazing tips that will propel your life. We talk about how growing up splitting time between the US and Colombia during his first 15 years impacted him, what he learned working at branding and business giant WWE, his fairy tale experience of meeting his fiancé, starting the Resist Average Academy, the process of authoring books and his motivation for writing them, the power of float tanks, learning techniques, his 3 C's of massive success, and his daily 6. For more information on Tommy, his books, and the Resist Average Academy podcast, go to resistaverageacademy.com and follow him at Tommy Baker Resist Average. If this podcast impacts or speaks to you, please share it and leave a review. And as always, follow More You Know Pod and Riley RM4 Tech on social media.
I'm just trying to make it all make sense.
The
More
You
No
Podcast.
All right. So how long did you live in Colombia and why did you come to America?
Yeah, love it. So I grew up there half of my life, and we moved back and forth. But the last time I came at 15.
And why did you go back and forth?
Yeah, my dad's job, his position, it just had us go back and forth, and different culture, different language, a lot of learning curve, but it gave me a lot of gifts, even though it was hard.
Gotcha. What was it like there?
Yeah, it was just a different perspective. I lived in a big city, but obviously there was things that you saw there that you just wouldn't see in the States.
Sure.
And there was always almost like a threat that something could happen. But it's also a very beautiful country. So you had that contrast, and the people are just, their level of genuine niceness is very hard to describe. It's like, it's something I've never experienced anywhere else, where they just they leave themselves on the table for you.
That's fascinating. I've heard that in a lot of different Latin communities where they're very loving and they're very engaged with life.
Yeah, and it's very authentic. I mean, it's there's no hidden agenda. They're people at core level. It's really good people. In Colombia, it's very difficult because obviously there's so much going on that has been a lot of chaos.
Sure, the crime and everything.
In spite of it, yeah, but they still remain a very happy people, not based on external stuff, just based on who they are. It's really powerful.
That's awesome. And so I also saw your grandpa, he was a Marine Colonel. How did he impact you?
Oh, huge. I was actually just, honoring him the other day. Just taught me so much about, we were very close, and he just taught me a lot about integrity, leadership, and really being selfless, being like a selfless leader, putting, leading yourself in the interest of leading others.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Both my grandpas were in the Navy, and one of them was in World War II, so I totally know what type of inspiration you're talking about.
Same thing, World War II, yeah, incredible.
Yeah. And so then I saw you started working at WWE with Latin America, and they're obviously a huge business and branding powerhouse. What was that like working there, and what'd you learn?
Yeah, it's really interesting because they're one of the biggest entertainment, sports, and media companies. And the biggest thing that I learned from them was they are so fearless in innovation, meaning I had never, I don't have a ton of experience in corporate America, but I had never seen a company make decisions on the fly about really big decisions that most others would get lost in bureaucracy or all of that stuff. So I had a very entrepreneurial feeling of like, hey, this is happening right now. We're going to completely shift our entire plan and do this.
Okay. And so did that kind of help you transition from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial world?
It definitely helped plant some seeds in terms of what I like to do and what my values were. And I know for me, one of my highest values is having time freedom. And so being able to have control of my schedule and autonomy. So obviously, being in corporate settings, you notice that friction. And so, people always tell me like, or entrepreneurs born or made, it's really about knowing yourself and what you value. I personally value freedom and time freedom. Other people might value security higher than that. But yeah, it started to give me, it was very entrepreneurial in nature, which helped me transition much more seamlessly.
Okay. And what made you make that transition?
Yeah, just looking down the line and saying, I'm on this path. Do I want to be on this path in 5 years? If I wake up in 5 years from this path, am I fulfilled? Am I doing work that is meaningful, that matters, that is compensating the way that I want to? And the answer for those was no. But it's one thing to have clarity, and it's a second thing to act on that clarity. So I got the clarity, and then that's when I started to make the transition into doing my own thing.
Okay, awesome. And then you started with SISU Elite Fitness?
Yes. So one of my passions at that time, it's still part of my life, but one of my big motivating forces was just physicality and helping other people achieve transformation through physicality. I'm a big nerd of psychology, human behavior, studying Maslow's hierarchy. So to me, if your physical is compromised, and his model is if the physical is compromised, getting to the self-actualization is impossible. And so that to me was a really nice way. If I could unlock someone's physical door, it usually opened them up to what's possible, which meant that they were able to create growth mentally, emotionally, spiritually, et cetera, et cetera.
So would you work any mindset coaching, or was it just all physical nutrition?
A lot of mindset. That was the cool thing.
That's awesome.
That was our differentiator. We were really unlike any other gym, that we really put that first, because what I'd known up to that point, and still true today, everybody has information, mechanics, strategies, systems, and all of them can work. The question is, what's the mindset behind that? And if the mindset is faulty, if there's a belief in there that's not serving, if there's something that's out of alignment, if there's an issue of worthiness, if there's an issue, whatever it may be, we can have all the tactics and systems and strategies, but it's not going to come to life.
I love that. So what you're saying is if you don't have the mindset, no matter what regimen it is, no matter what health regimen it is you're following, it's not going to be successful, because you have to have the follow through and the passion behind it.
And same thing in business. So many people in entrepreneurship, they're looking for the shiny marketing object. They're looking for that one marketing thing that's going to take their business to 10x. And listen, a lot of things in marketing work, but what's your mindset behind it as well?
Yes. So do you have the belief in it? Are you going to put the preparation and the necessarily time into putting into it? I totally get what you're saying. And so then you went into Tommy Baker Fitness, correct?
Yeah, and those were similar brands, just a little bit different in terms of who I was targeting. And then the Tommy Baker one helped me go from brick and mortar entrepreneurship to online virtual training, because people would message me from Florida, from Kansas, from Europe, and say, "Hey, do you do this?" And the answer was, "Well, no, but now that you're asking, I got to build something around that." And that really allowed me to have more freedom, not only just time freedom, which was one of my original values, but location freedom.
That's really cool. So what you really transitioned into was going from local to more of a worldwide basis, where you could engage with people over the internet and be helping people over the internet all worldwide.
Exactly.
Awesome. Very cool. And so then I also saw that you met your girlfriend around the same time. So how'd you meet her, and how she impacted you?
Absolutely. Yes. So we met crossing a street, actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right place at the right time.
It's like a movie.
It actually was like a movie. When we tell the story, people laugh. But I needed to get some Wi-Fi. There's no reason why I was supposed to be there, because I was something about a client with an invoice. I just needed Wi-Fi, and I stopped at a Starbucks that I never stopped at before. And I was rushing my way to do it, and she actually had something similar happen, where she was there and she hadn't been there in 6 months, and we just crossed at the right time, at the right place, and experienced a connection.
That's amazing. And how has she impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, transform my life. I mean, she's my fiance now, and she's just
Okay.
such a to me, relationships really create the foundation for our lives. And
Agreed.
if our relationships aren't in alignment and aren't in a place of connection and power, they drain our energy and they actually hold us back. And it's, these are intimate connections, but also social and the people we surround ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. And so, but they can also be our catalyst for growth. And that's the important piece.
Yeah, definitely. And that support that's needed. Everybody needs support.
We all do. Yeah. There's no lone wolf, lone warrior. We all need that support system.
Definitely. And so I saw you made this crazy move in Arizona in 2015, and she probably helped with the support with that. But I saw you had a 5-year lease and you had employees, you had everything. What made you move, and how scary was that? What made you really take that jump?
Yeah, it was definitely a big leap. And again, I started to look down the line and I said, okay, I'm going to, 5 years from now, where am I going to be? And what really mattered to me when I was doing the physical training for other people and helping people was the mindset stuff. I cared very little about the rest. And I was spending too much time in the world, even though we did a lot more mindset, we were still it was too physical. And my interests had outgrown that in a very real way. So I had to get honest. I said, where do I want to be spending my time? And I really wanted to be 100% talking about what was happening between the ears, the mindsets, the beliefs, human behavior, neuroscience, psychology, all of that stuff. And that's when I decided to make the transition. Now, I also wanted to I wanted to change my environment, because environment in our lives, again, like relationships, they either really, light a fire in terms of growth, or they hold us back. And I knew at that time my environment was holding me back. So I made a bold decision. I had no plan. I had a vision that I created. And then I stepped into it and made the transition. I was basically starting from scratch in many, many ways.
Okay, and why did you choose Arizona?
It just felt right. As simple as that. I'd only been here once. Didn't really know anybody here, but it just felt right to me. I'm big on outdoors. I love the mountains. They really inspire me. So that was definitely a driving force. But really, it just felt like the right place. And I know for a lot of people, a lot of times, even for myself at that time, it didn't make sense. But there's power in the things that don't make sense.
Sure, I totally get that. And so this was also when you started the Resist Average Academy, correct?
Absolutely.
And so this was also just kind of your transition into getting more focused on mindset and stuff like that rather than the fitness side?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was really, 10 years of intense study and focus, working with mentors, traveling all over the world to learn from the best of the best, and to distill the principles. And once you do that enough, it's really funny. You do that enough in different industries, you notice that there's all these pearls of wisdom that are almost universal laws that apply to any of them.
Sure.
You start hearing the same things over again. Something in the realm of business, it matches exactly what you read in another area of life. And those become the universal principles. So I wanted to start the show to help people, to really give people these pearls of wisdom that really happen when we have inspiring conversations like this, that they can apply to their lives in every area of their lives.
That's awesome. And that was a similar inspiration for me. It's an interesting point you bring up, how no matter where if it's a coach or if it's a business leader, or if it's a fitness leader, or if it's somebody else, an athlete, there's these little, as you call, pearls of knowledge, of wisdom that can be applied to different industries, different walks of life, relationships, whether it's business or personal. I think that's a really fascinating point. Like right now I'm reading Pat Riley's book, but I'm also reading Dean Graziosi. And as I'm reading both, I'm seeing similar things. They're essentially saying the same message, just in different words with different experiences and different bases to them.
And that's when you hit on stuff that's gold. And that's
Absolutely.
the fun part of being a curious student, is that you start to notice these trends and these patterns and these same themes that to me are just, it's amazing when you see the synchronicities and you notice those.
Agreed. And so what was your biggest challenge starting the podcast?
Yeah, the biggest challenge with the podcast was, diving into the unknown. I mean, I had never really spent time behind a mic. I mean, I had done media stuff for the gym, but you step into the unknown and you think, okay, where am I going to get guests? Who's going to come on the show? I have no track record in podcasting. So there's all the usual fears that come with that. And those were the biggest challenges early on.
And so I saw you got on News and Noteworthy on iTunes pretty quickly. What's your advice for that?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And my advice is, really one, obviously, have a quality, have something that's quality, have something that really that you can invest your time and your energy into for the right reasons. And number two is, leverage your network. I was able to have contacts from, at that point I've been 6-7 years in entrepreneurship. So I had a lot of contacts that were willing to say, hey, you get this new thing you're doing, let me share that out. And I think the combination of a quality product with, leveraging my network really helped that first initial boost.
Okay. And so do you think there's more value in having a network that can leave a bunch of reviews and share throughout their social media, or having some sort of a bigger guest who already has a network and has some sort of level of reputability to bring their audience over?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think, the first one is more valuable, I believe, and it's because, ultimately you don't know who's going to share your stuff. And so some of the guests that I've had, I was interview number, 5,000 on there. They have so many interviews that it's like, sure. I don't know what they're even going to do with it, right? At all. Maybe if I get a tweet, I'm lucky. So I do think it's a mixture of both as you grow and expand, that you can leverage people's audiences. But I never expected anything. My goal, my intention was always like, I want to do an interview that they haven't done, right? Which means that I have to study the craft of interviewing and get better as a conversationalist. And hopefully if I do that right, and it's an intention. So sometimes I hit it out of the park, and sometimes the intention, it happened, but it didn't come to life. Either way, it's the intention. And I know if I give them a great experience, if I say, hey, you spent an hour with me, but it was really valuable, they're much more likely to share it with their audience.
Definitely. That's a great point. But I think what you also said that's really important is when you're going to your network and you're asking people to share it with their friends and people that you actually know who you made through business connections or personal connections, you're building an organic following rather than leveraging somebody else's following. And I think that's really what's valuable, is you're going to find people who are connecting with your message, what you're trying to convey, rather than, oh, somebody said something on your podcast, there's this 30-second bit, 90-second bit, and now I'm going to go over, maybe I'll listen to a few episodes, but who knows how long they'll actually stay.
Yeah, and people always want to share stuff that really resonates with them. I mean,
Definitely.
when I read a great book, I'm all over. I'm on my newsletter talking about it. I'm on a podcast talking about it, and I mean, so if I listen to a great conversation, I'm sharing that too. So it's having that caliber of value, and then making it easy for them, and saying, if you enjoyed this, if you resonate with this, we'd love if you could share it with someone, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So who's your favorite guest?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Who's my favorite guest? I mean, I've had so many impactful ones. I'll just, I loved Dean Graziosi was incredible because I got to do it in person. So that just adds a little bit.
Makes it even better.
I had Dr. Joe Dispenza, who just really kind of, opened up my mind for a lot of things. It's hard when there's, the cool thing about doing podcasts, as and you'll continue to discover, is if I was the only one listening, it would already be incredible. Just from having the conversations, and the fact that now we get other people that can listen into that. I mean, it's a win-win all around.
Yeah, and the conversations, it's like you could have a favorite episode a year ago, and then you could have a brand new episode, like say, for example, the Dean Graziosi episode that just came out recently, and that's a new favorite conversation of yours. So I'm sure that changes all the time.
And it's fun to go back to old conversation. One of the things that I do on my podcast, not a lot of people do, is that I like having people back. If somebody really resonates, my friend Seth Madison, he's now been on the podcast twice. He's going to come back again. I have several other people that have been on twice. Because I like to see, okay, a year and a half ago, this is where they were. This was their message, very powerful. Yeah. Where are they today?
Yeah, and I'm sure your audience wants to too. That's actually really interesting because most people won't do that. With somebody like Joe Rogan, where they have so many episodes, you'll see some crossover where somebody comes on a year later. But I think that, have you noticed anything from an audience engagement perspective, either comments and feedback they've given? I feel like there's a lot of value with having people on a second time or a third time like that.
Yeah, because it just deepens the relationship, between the guest and, the audience. And
The
so,
audience,
yeah, and it allows to see people in real time, and then you can reference stuff from the past. So I think, I do think there's value in it. Again, if it really resonated with you as the host and you got feedback from your audience that it resonated, it's like, it's a no-brainer to bring them back. So I know I have people I'm going to have 2, 3, 4, 5 times, because as they grow and I grow, we're going to be able to build on our original conversation
and continue to provide that value.
Exactly.
I love that. So what are your favorite podcasts outside of your own? What do you listen to regularly, your top 3?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I love Finding Mastery by Michael Gervais.
Okay.
That's a great one. I know it's a little like more on unknown side. But he goes deep into mastery and has some of the best of the best. That's a favorite one of mine. I love, Lewis House School of Greatness. Definitely a big one for me. What else have I been listening to recently? Yeah, those I listen to so many podcasts that I start to blank out.
I get the same way.
No, because it's like almost like if you ask me what my favorite book is, I'm like, okay, I'm reading like 7 right now, and then my mind thinks of like which. But it really, and the ones that I love are in the realm of personal growth and entrepreneurship and all of those different type of worlds that I can plug into. As a writer, so another one came up. I'm a writer, so Jeff Goins has a great one called The Portfolio Life, and it just speaks. That's a very specific. When I need something, as a writer, if I need some type of writing tactical inspiration, I go to something like Jeff Goins. If I need just to lift me up on my day, I'll go to someone like Lewis House. Another one comes up, Robin Sharma. He does a solo podcast. Yeah, Finding Mastery. I feel very grounded because a lot of our message is the same. Obviously, people like Brendan Broussard. Okay, now they're coming out. So, but it's all about finding like what you need in the moments, from the very tactical.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's like, people have used books for that. People go on the internet, they'll go Google something for that. But I think podcasts, they have the same value where, oh, I'm having some sort of issue with this, or I want to learn more about this, or I want to get better at this. And you can find the podcast that's tailored specifically to your needs and provides value for the knowledge that you're trying to pick up.
Exactly. Like right now I'm in a book launch phase, and a lot of what I'm listening to is like, okay, I've done book launches before, but I'm looking at podcasts to give me ideas for new ways to get the book out there.
Gotcha. And so you're talking about your books. What compelled you to start writing books?
I just always loved writing. So even when I was, before my fitness industry, I had blogs and, I've just constantly been writing. So for me, writing is just a source of allowing myself to work through my own thoughts and, figure stuff out in the world. And then I'll ultimately, hopefully share that and give some value.
Okay. And what's the process like publishing a book? Do you self-publish? Do you work with a publisher? How long does it take to produce the book?
Yeah, first 2 were self-published, and then I got a publisher. 2 different experiences for sure. If you're going to self-publish, your time frame is much more compressed if you want it to be, meaning, it's a lot easier to get it out into the world. With traditional publishing, you're going to go through a lot more processes, and it's usually a 9 to 12 month. Once you finish the book, it's 9 to 12 months that you're going to get out, which is, a really long time. I like both for different reasons. But really the process of the book is having a really strong argument, having an idea that you can sum up in a sentence, creating an outline, because that's going to give you where you're going to go, and then committing to a word count. To me, it's when I'm writing 1,000 words a day, that means I've won the day. It doesn't matter how I'm going to get to 1,000. Sometimes they're the most inspirational 1,000 words I've ever written. Many times they're not. But as long as I get 1,000 words on the page, that's all that matters.
And how long does it typically take to finish a book when you're writing your 1,000 words a day?
Yeah, that's obviously, that rough, we all want to chase that really rough draft to get started.
Sure.
So that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, typically for me. And then, but as they say in the writing world, the real work begins with that second draft, with the editing and all of that stuff.
Okay. And so could you discuss each of your books, and I know you have 2 and then you have another one coming out. So just explain roughly what each of them are about and why you wrote each of them.
Definitely. So the first one was Unrest Ellucian. That's self-published. So that one was about this mindset of resolution that, And I saw this coming from all my years in both entrepreneurship and with the fitness industry. But it's like, okay, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life this coming January, and then 92% of resolutions don't end up anything.
Fizzle out.
Yeah, we gotta shift the mindset from, hey, just because a calendar digit goes from a 2 to a 3, it's an 8 to a 9, that we're going to make a decision. We can make a decision to change at any time. So that was that, giving people their power back. 2, the 1% rule was, I created that for people who set big goals and big visions, but always fall short of them, and they get overwhelmed and lost. And I said, you know what? I wanted to give people a system where it's like, if I just get 1% better today, that's it. Very easy to get 1% better. Over the course of a year, that creates anywhere from 3x to 37x growth, depending on incremental exponential growth. And if that's the case, hey, if a year from now I'm 3 times better podcaster, I'm a 3 times better writer, I got 3 times more in my bank account, or up to 37x, I'm winning. I'm absolutely winning, and I'm on my path. And so that's what the 1% rule is about, really releasing the pressure of these big goals and winning the day.
So that one's like, it's similar to, I don't know if you've read Aubrey Marcus's Own the Day, but from more analytical approach. And like, so you can actually kind of see your results with the percentages and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. And just like release. Yeah, I love Aubrey Marcus's theme, because it's like, all we have is today. So if we can own the day, if we can win the day, if we can get 1% better today, that's, hey, we did it. And we could just do that same thing tomorrow. What happens with goal setting is that we get overwhelmed with the vision. We get lost in the how, instead of focusing on what's the simplest domino that I can do today that's actually going to move me towards that vision.
I love that. I really love how you put that.
It's all simplicity. I always say seek simplicity. And as entrepreneurs, we want to complicate everything. I mean, hey, when I was launching my podcast, I wanted to overcomplicate everything. What's the intro music going to be? Where am I going to do it? Audio, video. It's like, no. I just have to get started. Let me get 10 episodes in the bank, and then I'll start to tweak some of those things.
And then we'll go from there. But it's easy to just think about where the end goal is, where you're really trying to get, and then, oh, I need to do this, that, and the other thing, and not just focus on, okay, I'm going to take the steps, go step by step, day by day, and eventually I'll get there.
Yeah, and it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it actually creates results, because we look back 3, 6, 9, 12 months later, and we've shipped 50 episodes. We've written 25,000 words. We've gone to the gym 7 times. 5 times a week for the whole duration. We've, made a revenue. We launched something and created revenue. So it's very important to remind ourselves of that.
And then you fall in love with the process once you remind yourself and you understand what you've done, what you've accomplished.
Yeah, and you celebrate your wins along the way. And
Definitely.
So often we're focused on what's not working, how we don't have enough clients, not enough people are listening, not enough people are watching. And it's like, hey, can we just celebrate the fact that we showed up, that we executed, that we delivered, that we made a sales call, that we made a podcast episode, that we wrote a few words? That's all that matters.
Definitely, because it builds up.
It builds momentum, exactly.
And so your book coming out, what's it called and what's it about?
Yeah, that's the newest one, and that's really about having so many conversations with people who know that there's something out there for them that they want to create. That's a change that they want to transition to. Okay, a change that they want to transition to, and they get stuck. They have an idea. They have something that's a shift in career. Maybe they want to launch their own business or side hustle or podcast, and in the moment they have absolute clarity. And then as time fades, it's gone. And so I wanted to write this book to give people permission to, 1, identify what that thing is, 2, make the decision today, because every moment that we wait, we lose the enthusiasm of that decision. But 3, what's going to happen next? To navigate some of the messiness. It's one of the guys in entrepreneurship calls it the messy middle. What happens after? And to understand there's going to be challenges, but those challenges don't mean that it's not going to come to life or you're not capable. It just means that that's part of the equation. So that one's called The Leap of Your Life, to help people redefine risk, step into the unknown, and really live a bold life.
And when does that come out?
April 2nd on that one. Available for pre-order now, but April 2nd officially.
Okay, great. And can they pre-order through your website, through Amazon?
Yeah, any major bookseller. If you look at Leap of Your Life on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or leapofyourlife.com, you'll be able to find it.
Awesome. Are you going to do an audiobook? Have you done that process before?
Yeah, I did it for the first 2, and the decision on that's going to be made on how the book does, because it's traditionally published. So they're going to see if the book does well. They're going to end up doing an audiobook. So hopefully that's going to be the case.
Okay, awesome. I've heard the recording audiobooks is one of the more painful processes where it's just really tedious and you have to repeat your own sentences just over and over and over again to make sure you're enunciating everything right. I heard Aubrey Marcus just talk about how painful it was.
I can imagine his was in his book, his Own the Day is such a big book. So
Yeah.
that probably took him a while, but it is a journey. When I did my second one, I got into a real state of flow. And I was like, man, I don't want to stop. I want to just keep going.
Yeah,
Cause I was
just
just
get
like,
it done.
Go. Yeah. And then the next day we came back and I had none of that spark left. So it's definitely a challenge, but it's, to me, I love audio. When I resonate with a book, I'll buy it physically because I support authors. So I think it's really important to support authors and books. If you like that stuff. And then I'll buy the audio too if I really connect with the material because I want to learn 360. I want to learn in different ways.
Yeah, and that's one of the best ways to learn too. And that's something that you're a proponent of, correct, is learning through listening while you're reading.
Absolutely. Yeah, doing both because they're gonna hit neural networks in your mind that are completely different and they're gonna create synapses that are gonna just add a level of depth.
Build stronger connections.
Yeah. When I was really and I'm still am when I was obsessive with my learning, when I really wanted to distill these principles, I mean, I would actually do this, and few people talk about this. It was just my level of obsessive. I would put the audio of the book, and these were some classic texts, put the audio of the book, and then I would get the text version on the screen, and then I would actually transcribe the audio while I was reading. So I did this with classic books like Emerson's Self-Reliance, Stoic philosophy, stuff like that. But if you really want to learn stuff, you got to write it, you got to read it, you got to teach it, which is great.
Yeah.
All of those ways.
I'm sure you almost remember it word by word at points with those books, huh?
Absolutely. The classics I do.
And so I want to get into some of the more mindset things and things you do to better yourself and things like that. So I know you're really into float tanks. So could you just briefly, for people who don't know what float tanks are, explain what they are and then how they assist you with your mindset?
Absolutely. Yeah. Float tanks changed my life. And I did one the other night. So basically what it is, you go into a tank and they have all different types, but it's thousands of pounds of Epsom salt. So you get in the tank and you experience what is called zero gravity, which means you're weightless. It's basically kind of like being in space, I guess. And you have nothing to see, nothing to, it's completely dark. You can't see anything. You're not holding on to anything. You're just sitting there in this tank. And it's a great way to create space in life, get insights, work through problems, and maybe just disconnect and recharge so you can come back more creative with more answers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of my favorites. It's not, I wouldn't say it's mainstream, but a lot of people are talking about it now. So you can find one probably in your local area, depending on where you live. If you just search your area plus float tank, you might be able to find something. Those are great. I like to say it's like meditation on steroids. It's better than meditation because once you commit to being in the tank, I mean, you can't really leave. You could get up, but you're in a tank, there's salt water, you don't want to move. So it almost forces you to stay in there. And a lot of people have trouble doing longer meditation. So highly, highly recommend that.
That's a really good point is because of how comfortable it is and how settled you get. It's easier than just sitting somewhere and trying to meditate and having all these noises go off and visuals. Even if your eyes are closed, you might be able to see a light go through your eyelids, something like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, if you're doing it for the first time, go in with no expectations, just see what happens, but do it at least 3 to 4 times because and I've studied a lot about float tanks. The results happen in between your sessions, and each time you go a little bit deeper.
Okay. And have you heard of John Lilly, who really pioneered them? He's a real interesting guy.
Yeah, he is. Yep, I've read a couple of his books because a lot of times these float tanks, they'll have like a library. Once you leave the float tank, they have like a place to kind of decompress.
Oh, that's cool.
I've read his books there. Yeah.
Okay. How long do you normally go in the float tank?
I usually do. At minimum, I do 45 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
So the standard time is 60. If you're going to go to a place, they'll put you for 60 minutes. I play around with it. Sometimes it's 45. Sometimes I'll ask for more and do 90.
Okay, great. And I've got a couple more questions. We'll finish this up. So what are your 3 C's of massive success?
Yeah, so 3 C's of massive success. It starts with clarity. Right? So we need to have clarity. Number 2 is commitment, because it's one thing to have clarity, but if we have clarity and we don't commit, it's not going to come to life. And once we have commitment, that creates certainty. And certainty is just an inner knowing that you're making progress and you're moving forward on your commitments. And those kind of repeat themselves. It's kind of like this wheel that goes around and around and around that leads to success.
And so do you think without the clarity, though, you can't get to the following steps? So you really need to build that time where you sit and think, maybe you go in the float tank, maybe you meditate, you take notes, you make a plan.
Yes. Here's the only caveat to that is too often people think they need all the clarity. All you need is some clarity. You don't need all the clarity.
Okay.
So if you found me 3 years ago and you said, hey, you're going to release these books, you're going to do this, you're going to do this on your podcast, you're going to be paid to speak, that would have been too much clarity for me. I just needed to I would have been overwhelmed with how am I going to bring that to life? So the reason I say that is because I talk to people and they say, well, I just need to spend another 3 months getting clarity. And it's like, no. You just need a little clarity to get started, because once you get started, so going back to the seeds, you get clarity, you have commitment, and they build on each other. As you know, like once we start moving forward with something, we get a lot more clarity. For me with the podcast, I just needed to get started. I couldn't have the clarity that I have now after 200 episodes, because that would have been impossible. It would have taken, I would have been stuck in paralysis analysis. So seek clarity, but again, you need the minimum viable dose and then act on that dose.
And then the commitment and clarity, they'll build on each other gradually, because as it becomes more clear, you're going to become more committed to that mission. Exactly.
It's a beautiful process.
And so you also have a daily 6. What is it? What are your daily 6?
Yeah, and that's just a morning routine to put me in a place of clarity, commitment, and certainty, but to really just get my mindset in the right place. So daily 6 is really simple. We do a gratitude exercise. We encourage somebody else. We study some type of studying text. We move our physicality in some shape, way, or form. What am I missing here? We meditate. We create the space with meditation. And then there's a purposeful action to finish the 6. And the purposeful action is something that's going to move your career, your craft, your business forward. For me, the purpose is just writing. So once I've done all those, I'm in a state of focus, and then I write, and that becomes my daily 6. I know it sounds like a lot. If you're new to it, keep it simple. Start with a 20, 30-minute routine, and then you can build on that. Too many people try to do, like, they might listen to an episode that I do. My routine's an hour and a half. They try to do that. It's too much. So start simple and then build on your success.
All right. And I really love what you bring up of encourage someone. And I think that's something that anybody can do, whether it's through a text message, your friends or family that you're with. But that's really what moves society forward and sparks change. And we all need a lift up. Everybody needs a lift up. And too often, I know, my social circle in the past, we weren't really supporting each other in a powerful way. And so I decided to take the lead and say, hey, when I get the clarity to do it, Riley, you're doing incredible work, man. Keep it up. Inspired. Like, just something as simple as that, acknowledging somebody in our space for something that they're doing and creating. It's incredible. Yeah, I agree. I think gratitude and showing appreciation is something so important. As we were talking about earlier, those little pearls that you read, that's something that you'll see in Carnegie. You'll see Ed Milet talking about that on his podcast, discussing it in his book. It's something so important to so many people who've had success in life. Exactly. All right, Tommy. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Is there anything else that you want to discuss? Anything you want to share with our audience? No, if you're thinking about doing something, let's release the thinking, actually step into your courage and take some type of decisive action. You'll find all the clarity, all the belief, all the possibility in there. So don't wait any longer, because every day that you wait, I have a 24-hour principle. The moment you get an idea, execute within 24 hours or you might lose it forever. That's number one. And number two, if this resonated, check out the Resist Average Academy podcast. You can go on iTunes, Stitcher, resistaverageacademy.com, and then also check out the upcoming book, The Label Your Life. All right. Thank you very much, Tommy. All right, Riley. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for listening to my interview with Tommy Baker of Resist Average Academy. We are grateful you took the time to listen to our conversation and hope it makes a positive impact in your life. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening or watching it. Check out other episodes, leave a review, and follow us on social media at More You Know Pod. Also, please don't forget about our sweepstakes. Retweet a clip with the hashtag The More You Know and New Podcast from our Twitter for a chance to win a signed copy of my upcoming book, The More You Know, coming this fall. Tag 2 friends in the comments on a clip on Instagram for a chance to win a brand new copy of Dean Graziosi's Millionaire Mindset, or Ed Milet's Max Out. Like us or share a clip on Facebook for a chance to win a book I have read that highly inspired me, signed by me with an inspirational message. Again, thank you for listening as we propel with podcasting through the more you know.
I'm just trying to make it all make sense.
The
More
You
No
Podcast.